Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we are going to be doing a 10-team half PPR mock draft on FantasyPros.com. Now, this draft is up against the computer, and like I've said before, I do plan on doing actual drafts with you guys in the future, so make sure you guys do stay tuned for that. I have said it before, but we are not in or past the NFL draft yet to where I really want to do these with you guys, so make sure that you guys do stay tuned for that. Again, 10-team half PPR mock draft. This draft, we're going from the second overall spot. The roster positions are as follows: 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, flex, kicker, defense, and 6 bench spots. I'd say this is about the normal for fantasy leagues. Some leagues do end up doing 3 wide receivers, so I will be doing those obviously in the future as well, because I try to accommodate to everyone's style of fantasy football league. So if you guys do end up enjoying this video, you want more fantasy content, you want to have a fun time, please make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Not only is it free, this content's coming out every single day. So let's get into it. Now, at the second overall spot in a 10-team league, this is not my ideal position to draft. I'm personally the kind of a guy who wants to be drafting at the back half of the first round. I personally just find I am much better at drafting there, where I can get 2 players back-to-back Michael Jordan 96-97 in the first and second round. But in the case of being this high up, you actually get the swing here from the second to third round. I get the 209, then there's 2 picks of the same guy, obviously, who is pick number 10, and then I get to go as well, again, which is very nice. I actually hate being in the middle of the draft. I just feel like my strategy is a bit thrown off by that, because when you're at the end or the beginning, you're kind of able to dictate the draft a little bit more. Like, if I was pick 10 and I smacked 2 running backs in a row, you can really end up dictating the draft, because then other people are going to panic and you can actually cause runs to happen, which is very fun. So without going super in depth on the strategy of picking a pick 10, because it has nothing to do with this video, we are at number 2. Christian McCaffrey is the first overall pick in the draft, which is going to be pretty normal. But I do think this year, unlike other years, we're going to have multiple players that are really considered to be the number 1 guy. I felt like last year Christian McCaffrey was running away with being the first guy off the board in every single league I was in. Christian McCaffrey went off at the 101. I'm sure people drafted Saquon or Alvin Kamara at that spot, or Derrick Henry or something, but I never saw it in any of my legitimate leagues. This year, I think it's going to be more like 50-50, maybe, or 25-25-25. Some people are going to go for Cook. Some people are going to go McCaffrey. Other people are going to go Saquon Barkley. So there's definitely a bunch of different players that could go at the 101. Christian McCaffrey, though, as long as he is a Carolina Panther and doesn't get traded to the Houston Texans, then we should be good. So at number 2 here, there are a bunch of players you can end up selecting here. While I wasn't the biggest fan of Dalvin Cook in the past, it was due to his injury history, but it is clear now at this point in his NFL career that this guy is not injury prone. That was just a bunch of kind of mumbo jumbo, and while he'll miss maybe 2 games next year, it's just expected at this point. I think he would be my second best player overall. This is a half PPR league, and while you don't necessarily think of Dalvin Cook as an amazing pass-catching running back, he does do that as well, and to me, he is the clear number 2 overall pick. But again, if you went with Saquon, if you went with Alvin Kamara, if you went with Derrick Henry, would I judge you? No, because I think all of those guys have the potential to finish as the best running back in fantasy, just like Mr. Dalvin Cook did when I selected him. Next up, we are going to look at the draft board after every single pick and talk a little bit about the draft. I'm going to end up moving myself to the bottom right of the screen because it's just easier for you guys to see. So after Christian McCaffrey came off the board, we went with Dalvin Cook, followed by Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Devontae Adams, Jonathan Taylor, Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones, Ezekiel Elliott to close out the first round. The first round in every single fantasy draft at this point in fantasy, with the strategy that most people use, it's going to be a majority running back in the first round. I'm surprised in a 10-team league if at least 6 players are not running backs in the first round. That would surprise me. Running backs are just so heavily not as deep as the wide receiver position. You can literally just close your eyes, pick someone in the 9th round, and they could end up being like a wide receiver too, whereas at the running back position, unless an injury was to happen or unless something crazy was to happen, that is very hard to end up doing. That's why a lot of people draft running backs early, which is typically my strategy. I know a couple of years ago, though, back in like 2015, when Antonio Brown was on the Steelers being a baller, he was certified or kind of classified as potentially being one of the first picks of the draft. Now, interesting enough, the second round begins with Nick Chubb, followed by Stephon Diggs, and then Travis Kelce. Now, Travis Kelce, in my opinion, will likely be a first-round pick in most leagues. While I am one of those guys that fucking smacks the drum for drafting your tight end later. If Kelce's available in the first round, it just seems like such a positional advantage over your league, especially in a smaller league, in a 10-team league. Like, you have the best tight end. As long as Kelce doesn't get hurt, knock on wood, you're going to be fine week in and week out. This guy's going to put up like 15 to 25 points every single week. After Travis Kelce came D-Hop, A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, Austin Eckler, and J.K. Dobbins. I'm a little bit surprised that many non-running backs came off the board, because I really feel like the run of wide receivers, then you're going to see like the second-tier tight ends, guys like Kittle, guys like Darren Waller sprinkle themselves in the third and fourth round. But this is where you really see a lot of running backs. Then typically the third and fourth round is littered with those wide receivers and tight ends. So we are back up to bat here. I do like Austin Eckler a lot. Sadly, he got selected before me. I really think Eckler is going to have a bounce back season with Mr. Justin Herbert under center. He was looking much better. That first game with Tyrod Taylor was disgusting because Tyrod just wasn't dumping the ball off. And then, I bet you the fucking doctor owned Eckler in fantasy, because that's why he stabbed Tyrod Taylor's lung, because he just was not dumping the ball off to Mr. Austin Eckler. I think we see big things out of him in 2021. But despite that, we are up on the board here with our second round pick, Cam Akers, Antonio Gibson, Miles Sanders, DeAndre Swift, Joe Mixon, CEH, James Robinson, Josh Jacobs are the next running backs available at wide receiver. We still have Calvin Ridley, Michael Thomas, Justin Jefferson, Allen Robinson, Keenan Allen, and Terry McLaurin. Now, do I see too much of a disparity at running back or wide receiver to the point where I don't necessarily, or where I feel like I have to pick one over the other, because I don't think one will fall to me at my next pick? Obviously, 2 picks from here. So this guy went with Christian McCaffrey, obviously, at the 101, and it is important to look at the draft board during your draft. We are so early where this could be anything. It could be 2 running backs. He could draft a quarterback. All I know, it's pretty much random at this point, but later in the draft, it's actually good to look at the draft board to see where your opponent may end up going in the draft positional-wise. So here, we're just going to go ahead and snag Calvin Ridley. I'm going to be fine with any combination of Cam Akers, Antonio Gibson, Miles Sanders, or DeAndre Swift at that next pick, and I feel very confident in Calvin Ridley eating in 2021. I do like Michael Thomas, but I think Calvin Ridley may end up finishing over him in 2021 with Matt Ryan under center. Julio Jones, if he's healthy, Calvin Ridley actually statistically plays better with Julio Jones healthy, so we got to hope Julio stays healthy. I think this Atlanta team is on the up and up in 2021, so I do not mind drafting Calvin Ridley at that pick. Next after that was Joe Mixon and George Kittle meet Timbers, so we found ourselves in a very juicy spot here with a running back I wasn't necessarily looking at in the second round in Joe Mixon and George Kittle. Now, in yesterday's video, I talked about Joe Mixon heavily, how much I kind of like the bounce back potential, but what I said in the video is I like him in the 3rd or 4th round. I don't want to draft him at the end of the 2nd round. I don't want to draft him really at the beginning of the 3rd round. So, I don't know. What do you guys think about Joe Mixon? Do you think he ends up bouncing back, or do you think we end up just seeing 2020 Joe Mixon again, and not the 2019 at the end of season Joe Mixon? So now we're on the board here. We are going to end up going running back, because it just really falls off kind of after this tier of running back. And then David Montgomery, Chris Carson, Kareem Hunt, and Melvin Gordon I kind of think are pretty solid. But after that, it turns to a shit show, and they're so long in between my 2 picks that I just feel like I have to go running back here. So Akers, Antonio Gibson, Miles Sanders, DeAndre Swift. Between those guys, I like Akers a lot. I've talked about this before. I really am all in on this LA Rams offense being very productive fantasy football-wise with Matthew Stafford under center. We saw in the playoffs, we saw in the fantasy playoffs, Cam Akers really take a stranglehold of this backfield. He's the clear number 1 on this team. Antonio Gibson, Washington, they're looking maybe a little bit better. Maybe with Ryan Fitzpatrick, Antonio Gibson can elevate himself. Now, he's not necessarily a workhorse guy because they do have McKissick behind him. It's not like he's just going to be getting all the catches and all the rushes, but I still like him. Miles Sanders, we have to see how it looks with Jalen Hurts under center versus with Carson Wentz. Then DeAndre Swift. They bring in Jamal Williams. Yikes. But I still think DeAndre Swift can be good. To me, I'm really between Cam Akers and Antonio Gibson at this pick. I do like James Robinson as well. I'm pretty high on him. Josh Jacobs is completely dead due to them bringing in Kenyon Drake. So we're going to go with Cam Akers here. I think he does have top 10 potential at the running back position, as long as the LA Rams are as good as I believe they will be, and Matthew Stafford being able to move the ball much more effectively should be able to make Cam Akers score more points than with Jared Goff in that system. And obviously, Sean McVay's a genius coach, so I'm sure it will end up working out. After we went ahead and drafted Mr. Cam Akers of the Los Angeles Rams, second-year NFL running back, Justin Jefferson came off the board, followed by Patty Mahomes, Allen Robinson, Antonio Gibson, Michael Thomas, DeAndre Swift, Keenan Allen, and Josh Jacobs to close out the third round. Pat Mahomes going in the third round. I talk about this in every video, so, at least every mock draft video, so I don't really want to dive too deep into this, but quarterbacks are very dependent on how sharp your league mates are and what their opinion is on quarterbacks. If you're in a 1-quarterback league and 2-quarterback league, super flex leagues, they're going to go in the first round. But in your regular league, if you're drafting with a bunch of guys or gals that are just, people at work or your family members, maybe people that aren't as you're watching a fucking fantasy video in March, so clearly, or maybe now it's April as you're watching this, but you clearly care a lot about fantasy. Maybe they don't, and maybe they draft a quarterback high. Now, I'm not saying you can't win drafting a quarterback high, because you can literally draft a kicker in the first round and still win your league, but I personally kind of stay away from that. But where Pat Mahomes, where Russell Wilson, where these top guys are going to go is really just dependent on your league mates. Josh Jacobs, like I said, closing out the third round, that is not a guy I'm looking for at all inside of the third round, with guys like Miles Sanders, James Robinson, David Montgomery, even Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I don't really like. With him still available, there's no way I'm picking Josh Jacobs. After Josh Jacobs, we see Terry McLaurin begin the fourth round, followed by Darren Waller, Miles Sanders, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, James Robinson, David Montgomery, DJ Moore, Wiki, and Julio Jones. If you guys, again, have ended up enjoying the video thus far, please make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. I apologize if I did this 2 minutes ago, but I don't remember which mark I hit you guys with the double. Make sure that you subscribe. So at round number 4, we begin here, and I am pretty confident in going with a wide receiver here, unless I love either of these running backs. Now, 3 tight ends are off the board. Those are my 3 big guys. I like Hockenson. I'm not a huge fan of Mark Andrews. Now, Andrews I was a big fan of in 2020 after his tremendous 2019 campaign, but it seems like Lamar Jackson and this offense just are not going to be very good at passing. Is it Lamar's fault? Not really. I'm thinking if things don't go well, the offensive coordinator is going to be gone in 2020. Interesting enough, guys, they did end up expanding the NFL season to 17 games, 18 weeks, so that definitely changes fantasy. My assumption is that most leagues will go with me, and we're going to just play 16 games like normal, and then kind of reevaluate what happened at the end of the season, and then going into 2022, maybe we're playing 17 games for fantasy. But I just don't know how to feel about guys sitting and stuff like that. So let me know your guys' opinion on that. I made a video about that yesterday, just a little bit talking about it. It was like 3 minutes, so I kind of gave you the fucking Cliff Notes answer right there, my summation right there. So we are up on the board, and we do have 2 picks relatively close, so I think I am going to end up picking a running back at this pick. The guy ahead of me at the 1 pick is likely to go with at least 1 wide receiver, as he doesn't have a single one, but I am not 100% sure that he wouldn't go with a running back to play in his flex. Now, it is a computer, so we can kind of undermine it and just go with a wide receiver here, which is what we're going to end up doing, but in a real draft, it's definitely possible that people draft 3 running backs, maybe even in the first 3 rounds. That's not even a bad strategy. But here, we're going to actually go running back because I don't love any of these wide receivers, especially Godwin and Mike Evans. I'm not sold in on them, and I am sold in on a couple of these running backs. I like Carson back in Seattle. I just feel confident that he's going to have another sneaky great year. Every single year, this motherfucker is getting like 1,000 rushing yards. I understand last year he didn't, but he only played in 12 games, 2018, 2019, back-to-back, 1,000-plus rushing yard season. He scored 9 touchdowns, 999. Shout out Juice WRLD in 2018, 2019, and 2020. So I'm very confident in Chris Carson and the Seattle Seahawks offense to be pretty solid yet again in 2020. So interesting enough, the guy didn't go with a single running back. He went with T. Higgins, followed by Kyler Murray, the guy who can't even see over the offensive line because he's so short, but it doesn't seem to matter at all for fantasy football. T. Higgins is a nice pick, but in the 4th round seems a little bit high in my opinion. And again, the quarterbacks is just completely random. We may see, though, a quarterback run occur because typically in like the 5th, 6th round, If a lot of the quarterbacks are available, you'll see Kyler come off the board. Then someone will be like, oh shit, fucking just poop themselves, draft a bunch of quarterbacks in a row. Maybe we'll end up seeing that in this draft. So we're going to go ahead and draft a wide receiver here at this pick. I don't want Godwin. I don't want Evans. I think they can both have good years, but it just seems confusing in Tampa who it'll be on a weekly basis. So I'm going to go with my boy, Roberto Woods, Bobby Trees at this pick. I used to like Golladay, but now in New York, I'm not too confident in Danny Dimes, so I'm not too sure. I love Kenny G at this pick, but I am sold in on Bobby Trees, Roberto Woods being very good in 2021. So after this, we see a huge run at wide receiver, some tight ends, notably no quarterback run just yet, so maybe it'll happen in the 7th round. So after we went ahead and selected Chris Carson and Robert Woods, Chris Godwin came off the board, followed by Mikey, Mike Evans, Josh Allen, Amari Cooper, Kenyon Drake, Kenny Golladay, Najee Harris, Adam Thielen, Marky Mark Andrews, Deontay Johnson, Brandon Ayuk, Hunter Henry, TJ Hawkinson, Travis Etienne, CeeDee Lamb, and Ron Rodgers. Mr. Discount double check. Kenyon Drake will not go in the 5th round. I'm telling you that right now. I don't know where Fantasy Pro is getting its ADP at because there's no way a backup running back gets drafted in the 5th round. Now, I understand that there's the narrative of, oh, he's going to be in the slot, this, that, and the other thing, but not sure I want to draft that in the 5th round, if I'm being honest with you. I mean, if Jacobs goes down, fucking Drake will be a beast, but otherwise, it's looking kind of grim for both of their situations if they are both healthy. Hunter Henry's a guy there's no way I'm touching in the 6th round with Jonnu Smith in New England. I don't want to draft either of them, frankly. I think it's going to be on a week-to-week basis. It's going to be a different guy, and then there's going to be a bunch of weeks where neither of them succeed and Cam just rushes in 2 touchdowns unless they draft Mr. Mackie Mac Jones in the 1st round. So we are back up on the clock. Najee Harris and Travis Etienne already come off the board. Those are 2 guys that'll be like 3rd or 4th round picks by the time the NFL draft happens, and we're drafting in August because the rookies always get all the hype, and if they land in the correct spots, the hype will be deserved. Same thing goes with running back Javonte Williams out of UNC. He's also kind of one of those big 3 guys with Najee, with Travis Etienne, and I can really see a scenario where Javante's up there in like the 3rd, 4th round as well. Maybe not, but again, it's all about landing spot. Whoever maybe lands on the Steelers or a team that can really take a stranglehold with the running back and he can just beat the shit out of defenses. 1-2 Mayweather. So now we are back up on the clock. Not really looking at tight end. We're kind of just punting the position. Quarterback, not really looking at that either. Running backs are free falling right now because Kareem and Melvin Gordon are still available. Now, Melvin Gordon is a guy that I kind of like because with Phillip Lindsay gone, it just seems like there's a lot of opportunity to have in that backfield. I understand Mike Boone is behind him, but Mike Boone is not Phillip Lindsay because Phillip Lindsay kind of made it like a 50-50-esque split. It was like a double-headed backfield is the entendre, if that's even the correct word to use, like the allegory. Don't even know what that word means, actually. But like the kind of term I use for it because if Melvin Gordon's there, Lindsay's fucked. If Lindsay's there, Gordon is fucked. But now Lindsay's gone in Houston. Maybe he's the running back one there on that old-ass team with Mark Ingram and with David Johnson. But I'm pretty sold in that Melvin Gordon's going to actually be pretty decent. He finished as running back 14, I believe, last year. Was very solid, but that's because Lindsay was hurt a lot. And guess what? Lindsay's gone now. Who would have guessed that might bring in some success? Kareem Hunt, Kareem Pie, seems like he could be very good as well. Was very good last year. I think he's a very safe pick to play as your flex, but, we already have 3 running backs that I deem as very safe, so we're going a little bit risky, getting a little bit sexy here with this pick, and we're going to snag up Melvin Gordon III of the Denver Broncos. Again, this is assuming that the Broncos don't just draft a running back. After our pick at the 609, very nice, 69, I like. After that, we saw Odell as well as Cooper Kupp. You will not catch me drafting fucking Odell in the 6th round. You won't catch me drafting Odell at all. I don't like Odell now. Again, I'm not someone who hates, like, the character of Odell. It's fucking funny when he, like, punches that net in New York and then he goes and marries it, right? It was all fun and games back in the day when it was him versus Josh Norman. Those were the times that I miss. But now we're at Odell is kind of washed up time. Now, I'm not saying he's bad, but on the Browns where they like to run the ball a lot, it just does not seem like a lot of success can happen there in Cleveland. Now, again, there's also the narrative that, hey, maybe Odell Beckham's going to get traded. And in that narrative, in that scenario, in that multiverse world, maybe Odell's pretty good on a different team, but where he is right now in Cleveland, I do not like he. And then after that was Cooper Kupp, a guy I do like. We got Woods in the 5th, and Kupp's going in the 7th, almost 2 complete rounds later. That's great value. I like Kupp as well, but to me, I would prefer Woods over Kupp because I just feel like he is going to be the kind of big play receiver on the team, whereas Kupp's just more of the slot guy. So now we're up, and I almost want to draft a running back again. Like, I don't love any of these wide receivers, but I still think I'm going to just chase upside on one here at this pick. I'm pretty comfortable with Ridley and Woods. Lockett is a guy that I really like in best ball, but in regular redraft leagues, I'm telling you guys, Tyler Lockett is a complete fucking bust because I wonder if I can even pull it up on here. It's not even letting me click on his name. Okay, there we go. But it's like the guy on a game-per-game basis is just insane, right? Week 1, he's wide receiver 21, then 13, then 1. The next week, 71, 53, right? He has a bye week, comes back, wide receiver 1, and then he's wide receiver 58, 63, 32, 11, 71, 47, 45, 65, 60, 70. Does that look consistent? No. He's going to have those huge games that are week winning, where he just takes his cock out and slaps the defense upside the face. And then there's other weeks where the guy gets locked down. And if you look at this, it doesn't even matter who he's playing against. It literally does not matter. If the defense is good, he might just slap up a really good defense. Like against San Francisco, they're a pretty solid defense. Finish 7th against them. But then he plays against the Jets, who are fucking atrocious, wide receiver 45. So you really can't be drafting him, in my opinion, in redraft. He's just too risky and just unpredictable. Because like I said, even up against bad teams, he fails. So I won't be taking this shot on him. I'm going to take this shot with Will Fuller. Now, I'm not ultimately confident that he is going to be, like, super consistent, but I think he might be more consistent than Lockett. And if they bring in Ja'Marr Chase, man, this offense is going to be beautiful of my Dolphins. Again, no real bias, though, because I'm not really someone who's out there just sucking off, at least for fantasy purposes, the wide receivers, the weapons, Tua. For fantasy purposes, I think they'll be a good offense in the NFL. Not the greatest for fantasy, but I do think Will Fuller has that potential to be very consistent. He kind of was this year, and I'm going to draft him here in the 7th round. I believe that was, the 7th round or the 8th round, with a decent amount of confidence that maybe he has a big season. The other guys around him, I was not too super sold in on at this point in the draft. But again, he is my wide receiver 3. So next up, after we went ahead and drafted Mr. Will Fuller, Mr. PEDs, Kareem Hunt came off the board, followed by Tyler Lockett, DJ Chark, and then what I said would happen did happen in the 7th round. Dak, Lamar, Deshaun, Russ, Justin Herbert. Again, with Deshaun Watson, we have no idea what's going to happen. No idea. If you're drafting right now, I'm not drafting Deshaun Watson. In every best ball draft I've done, I have not selected Deshaun Watson once because I have zero idea what is going to happen, and I don't think we will know for a while. So that's just how I'm feeling about it. But yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quarterbacks in a row, not surprising at all. Like I said, someone drafts Dak. This guy's like, oh shit, I'm not going to get a quarterback in the next round, so I pick Lamar. And this guy's like, oh, fuck, now I got to pick Deshaun. Now I got to pick Russ. Now I got to pick Herbert. That's what happens. So don't hop on that train. We're the only team without a quarterback. And in a lot of leagues, people do draft 2 quarterbacks. So you kind of want to go ahead and make sure that you're drafting your quarterback before people hop on the backup train. After that began the 8th round with Cortland Sutton, a guy I really like. Javonte Williams, no way he goes in the 8th. Very bright spot out of UNC. His teammate Michael Carter's also going to be a decent draft pick in the NFL, but I'm not too sure I'm sold in him on fantasy for a redraft standpoint this season. After that, we see Chase Claypool, David Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, Corey Davis, Ronaldo Jones, and Chase Edmonds. So we are up on the board here. We're probably going to snag another wide receiver and running back here. At tight end, Noah Fant seems decent, but I'm not as sold in on Horsecock Drew Lock. I like Goddard, but again, they might draft Pitts. So I don't know about that. At running back, I really like Raheem Mostert. Wide receiver, Boyd, Cooks. I mean, if Deshaun does play, I really like Cooks because he's the only wide receiver there. So I think there's some upside with that. I mean, he played pretty decent last year when he was healthy. Again, when he was healthy, he always kind of gets concussed, but he's never missing like a tremendous amount of games. Let's look at his stats overall in his career. 15, 14, 16, 16, 16, 16, 10. So it's not as bad as you guys would think. I like Tyler Boyd as well. There is the opportunity for them to bring in another wide receiver, but I hope they draft Penei Sewell with the first pick. Again, if I pronounce his name wrong, I apologize. This dude's like 330 pounds, 7,000 feet tall. This guy's an absolute unit to protect Joe Burrow, and Tyler Boyd will eat in this scenario. I like Tyler Boyd here a lot inside of the 8th round, given they don't draft Ja'Marr Chase. I still like Higgins. I like him better than Boyd, but the value on Boyd to me is very strong. After that, we see Myles Carroll Gaskin, Jarvis Landry, and then it is my pick. We're going to snag a running back here. I like Raheem Mostert. This 49ers backfield is going to be potent for fantasy football. Which running back is it? We don't know, though, as of right now, but I feel like Raheem is going to be leading the charge to be the number one guy going into training camp as long as they don't draft a guy like Javonte Williams. So, if you guys, again, have ended up enjoying, we're about 25 minutes in, please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. I hope we're having a great time today. Yeah, I just hope you guys are doing great. And obviously, if you made it this far in this video, we're going to give you guys a different word for every single video. Comment down below, calm. Calm, you know, because I read keep calm and carry on. Just comment calm down below in the description. I love you, and I would really appreciate that in the comment section, I should say. Just so you guys know, the more comments you leave, the actual higher chance it is that someone sees my videos. Just so you know, obviously, that is one of the reasons why, but I also do like talking to you guys down below in the comments. I'm not just some complete fucking salad who wants you to comment just for his own personal gain. That's not me. Come on. All right, so we're back. And I kind of want to go quarterback here. I think Jalen Hurts is going to get talked up. I'm talking straight to the fucking moon talked up type deal where he is going to end up being like a top 7 quarterback in ADP by the time we're drafting in August. Sorry if you can hear my chair squeaking, because he's the Konami quarterback, which is what people talk about. A bunch of fucking nerds talk about on Twitter. Oh, he's great at running. Oh, he's this, he's that. I fucking hate the term Konami quarterback. I just do. I genuinely think it's like lame. It's just a lame term in my opinion. But what do I know? I call myself Notorious Fantasy and talk into a fucking webcam every single day about fantasy football. So who's really the loser, right? So Jalen Hurts, I like the situation. I don't know if I could pick him above Tannehill, though. And I like Stafford, but we already have so many Rams players that I feel like it would be foolish to just completely buy in on the Rams. Because if the Rams have a shit game, I'm just fucked in that scenario. So I think we're going to go with Ryan Tannehill. Very safe quarterback in Tennessee. Obviously, they like to run the ball. I think they end up bringing in another weapon besides A.J. Brown because obviously they lost Corey Davis to the New York Football Jets. And you don't really want just A.J. Brown to be there. So we're going to go ahead and select Ryan Tanny God at this pick with some rushing upside. Again, I wouldn't judge if you went with Jalen Hurts, though, at that pick. After that, we saw Devin Singletary followed by Jerry Jeudy. The Buffalo Bills backfield, I'm not even going to draft. I think I will, in some leagues, end up drafting Zach Moss, talk myself, do some mental gymnastics into drafting him again later in the draft. But that's not me thinking he's going to take over. It's just me thinking if Singletary goes down, then Moss could be good. But otherwise, that backfield is just straight up AIDS. Shout out Magic Johnson. So now we are back up on the board. I forgot to recap the last round, so fuck it. I'll just do it at the end of the video. You guys can check out the rest of the board there. Zach Moss ended up going. Leonard Fournette re-signs with the Bucks. I mean, what the flippity floop. Did he re-sign with the Bucks? I thought he did. Let's see real quick maths. Yes, he did. Yeah. Rojo season is over. I mean, it's just, like, every week it's going to be one of them. So it's just a complete guess. So I'm not fucking drafting either of those guys, to be honest with you. So we are back up on the board. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 running backs, and 1, 2, 3, 4 receivers. So typically at the end of the draft, you want to finish with more running backs than wide receivers because at the end of the draft, you can, or during the regular season, I should say, you can easily, like, find a wide receiver off the waiver wire, right? Like, week 1, there's going to be like 7,000 guys. That's like, oh shit, you got to pick this guy up, right? Or you can just close your eyes and add one of them. They'll probably get you like 9 points every week, right? But then when you're trying to find a running back that's going to do that, it is very, very difficult. So we are going to end up trying to finish our rosters with more running backs than wide receivers. I typically don't draft 2 tight ends. Now, if you're taking a shot late in the draft, you actually can do that because you want to maximize your upside of hitting, but to me, never really quarterbacks unless you're in the 14-team league where you kind of have to draft two, because if your guy gets hurt, then on the waiver wire, there's people that aren't even starting in the NFL on the waiver wire. So now we are back up on the board, and we are going to end up going with our tight end here. There's still a lot available, and I'm pretty confident in a couple of these guys. I'm going to go with Goddard. Let's hope they don't draft Kyle Pitts in this scenario. So after we went with Mr. Dallas Goedert, we're going to have to fill up our 2 bench spots and then go with a defense and a kicker. My strategy on defense is to wait till the NFL schedule shows up. You Google it, you find a defense playing an offense that you think is going to struggle, throw interceptions, get sacked, and then you just play that defense. So we're back again, and we're going to go with probably running back, wide receiver combo at the end. I don't think we're going to take the shot at the tight end because I'm pretty comfortable in Goddard. So we're going to go running back. I like a couple of these guys. I like Wilson to really shore up that backfield in I'm so dumb. I forgot what the fuck the 49ers names were in San Francisco. But I also like Darrell Henderson to shore up the Rams backfield, because if Akers was to go down, I think Darrell Henderson would be a beast. So I'm going to end up doing that. And then we are going to end up drafting a wide receiver, then our kicker and defense. So hopefully you guys have ended up enjoying this video thus far to the end. So now we are finally up here to make this final pick before our defense and our kicker. We're going to end up going with a straight up shot directly to the moon and go with an upside pick. Devontae Smith's going to get drafted way higher than this, just so you guys know. We're going to go with Ruggs. Sucked. This is an upside pick. If you want to go safe, I'd go with Cole Beasley. But the upside pick is Ruggs, that he really hits a second-year stride in Viva Las Vegas. As the first wide receiver drafted in the first round of the draft, he kind of sucked. That's a fucking understatement. He sucked compared to what people thought he would be. So let's hope he bounces back in the case of our teams. Now we're going defense and kicker again for the defense. For the defense, you want to do what I said earlier. We don't have the schedule right now, so we're going to go with the Washington football team, just the highest ranked defenses. And then we are going with our kicker, my main man, my old bitch lame, but my young ho coo over here. Hopefully I didn't scare you guys away with my singing. So thank you guys for watching this video. We kind of talked about the whole draft. I'll kind of break down some of the later picks that we didn't necessarily talk about. Got a 91 out of 100, A-. I mean, I'm a fucking genius. It is what it is. They all love me except for tags, but it is what it is. So we're going to go ahead and break down these later picks that I didn't necessarily go super in depth on. Juju, not a guy I'm targeting at all in my fantasy drafts. I think Claypool and Johnson are much better than him. Pollard's a nice handcuff, but if I don't have Zeke, I don't want him. I like a lot of these tight ends. I like Hurst. I like Thomas. I like Fant. I like Tanyan. Late round quarterbacks. If I can get Brady or Stafford in the 12th round, I didn't have to draft Tannehill here, I would be laughing to the bank like ha ha ha. Le'Veon Bell, interesting to see where he ends up. Jamal Williams is not a guy I'll be targeting in my fantasy drafts. And final player to talk about a little bit is Mr. A.J. Dillon. Does provide supreme upside, but that is only if Aaron Jones is 6 feet under, injured, knock on wood, let's hope that doesn't happen. Then A.J. Dillon will be very good, but otherwise, there's no way I think you can start both of those guys on a weekly basis. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys all. Shout out to my cat in the background. I hope you guys have a great rest of your guys' day. I love you all. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed, and as always, have a great rest of your guys' day. Goodbye!